Hello. Everyone can see the screen, right? All right. So today we're just going to talk about server setup and RCON basics. I'm sure most of you have already seen a little bit of this. For those that have played in Newbie Cup, you guys have probably seen your coaches set up scrims, get a server, and then you guys get to connect. Or maybe you've done it yourself. So this is just going to cover a little bit about that and then how to configure the server using RCON. So just as an overview, we're going to start off talking about the client console as a preliminary, make sure that everyone has that set up, and then server setup and RCON commands. So mostly just a formality, but just making sure people get their dev console enabled. So you'll want to go to options, click on the advanced there, and then click the checkbox for dev console. And to open up the dev console, the default key should be that grave key or the tilde key at the top left for most people. You can always change it. And so yeah, you can just run commands in that. And so when you run commands like this, it is just a console side command. Okay. So yeah, and here are some links. I posted these slides for anyone that wants them. In theory, you don't need to watch this lecture. You can just go through these slides, and it basically explains all the basics. So these are some additional resources on the dev console and different commands you can run. Okay, now onto the meat and potatoes, and what we care about is setting up a server. So RGL has rules when it comes to what servers you can use. So this is from their rulebook covering match servers. They must be hosted by a dedicated server provider. That means you can't host the server yourself, for example. You can't, if you run it on your machine or you have an extra machine, you can't run a server and then use that for a match. That is illegal according to RGL rules. So some server providers that you can use, here are just some examples that I know of, is NA for NA servers and QuickServer. I'm sure there are others, but these are the ones that I know about. I'm just going to quickly talk about NA and how to set that up, since that's what we've typically used in the past. QuickServer is a Discord bot, but I haven't used it before. So if you go to ServeMe, these slides basically just walk through how to get a server. So you'll click on this button. You're going to set the start and end time. And one thing to note here is there's only a few select servers open for unpaid or non-premium accounts. So if you want to get a server, you'll want to get it ahead of time. So you want to try to get it reserved before it gets taken up by someone else. So you're going to set the start and end time, and then you'll select the server that you want to use. It'll also show the pings to the different servers for you, so you can also look at that. But you'll want to make sure that it's a server that everyone has decent ping on. That's also in the RGL rules, that it should be a central server generally for everyone. So once you select your start and end times and your server, you can set the password or RCON password. These will populate with a generated random password initially, and then you can set the map that you want to start off on, the SDV password. So you can check out this link here for the RGL docs for the current season maps and configs. Always good to check. Sometimes they change versions if there's a new version, so I like to have that bookmarked. And then you can adjust some other settings here. Probably the most important one, you can mostly leave these as default, but the important one is the server config. So if you're in a scrim, you want to make sure to use the scrim config. If you're playing a match, you want to use the match config. And there are different ones for 5CP versus Koth as well. And we'll talk about that a little later with the RCON. So yeah, and once you book it, you'll see this screen. And it'll show you all the different options and info. So the ones you want to take note of are the connect info here. This is what you're going to send to your players and the other team. And then you want to keep the RCON password for yourself. This is how you're going to control the server. You can also give out the SDV info, for example, if your match is being casted. Okay, so how do we actually manage our server and control our server? For example, how do we change maps? How do we change the config? we use typically something called RCON. RCON stands for remote console. So in the same way that you would input commands to your dev console for client commands, you can use RCON to essentially send commands to the client server console. So for example, to input a command here, you can do RCON and then your command, which is say hello world, and it'll basically run say hello world on the server side. So to use RCON, as you saw maybe in the previous screen, the server provider should give you an RCON address and RCON password. So the RCON address is the same as whatever the server address is, same as the connect address. And then you have the RCON password. And you're going to want to run these commands in your console. And that will set both the RCON address and password, and then you can use RCON to control that server. And you want to make sure you want to keep this private and only share it with those you trust as needed, because if someone bad gets this, they can mess up your server and potentially mess up a match, right? So you don't want to do that. You want to keep this private. Okay, so some of the important things you can do with RCON, you can change the map, you can change the config, you can re-exec the config, you can end the match early using win limit or time limit, you can change the item whitelist, you can change demo check settings, you can kick or ban players, and you can run source mod commands. So change level is the command you're going to use here to change the map. So again, you're going to want to check out the RGL docs for the current list of maps and configs. And for some of them, you can look at previous map pools if you want to know what the last used map version was. For example, CP Snakewater Final 1. That is the version that we use for Snakewater. It is currently not in the map pool, I believe, but this is the version we use. So there are a couple of exec files that you're going to care about for sixes. It's the scrim configs and then the match configs. You'll see that it's _pro. So these configs use banny time, which means that once 30 minutes is up, the win limit is set to +1, whatever the highest amount of rounds won for either team is. So that's just a setting in the config, and you'll want to make sure that you use these. Sometimes the changes between seasons, so again, you can check the RGL docs to see what configs are available and what you should use. If you need to end a game early, you can use either win limit 1 or time limit 1. This will essentially end the game if one team has more than at least one round, or if at least 1 minute has elapsed. So it's useful, for example, if you have a scrim running over, but you have another scrim right after. If you want to change the whitelist, you can use these commands, tftrue_whitelist_id. And this is the season 19 whitelist ID 18392. You can also find this online if you go to whitelist.tf. And then demo check. So this is probably a pretty useful one to know, especially for a scrim where maybe you don't want to record demos, or for a pug where you don't want to record demos. So you can disable the demo check plugin using these commands, or set it so that it does a warning instead of a kick. And then lastly, if some people are causing some trouble, you can, for example, kick them or ban them. And that's pretty simple. You just type their player name after. Yeah, so it's like if someone's harassing you or something and they somehow got the connect info, you can kick them from the server or ban them. All right. And then obviously there are some fun commands you can run. This only works in pregame, and you can try these out if you want. So yeah, that's pretty much it. Here are some additional resources that you can find on the slides if you're interested on things you can do with the console. But yeah, pretty short. Not too much to it. Let me know if there are any questions. Okay. So yeah, as I said, ServeMe is one of the providers you can use. You can also try QuickServer if you want. This one is done through a Discord bot. think that's pretty much it.